Welcome to Blueprint Radio. I'm your host, Martin Williams. Here we help you create a blueprint for your life. So let's build. And welcome to Blueprint Radio. My name is Martin Williams. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. You may do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. All the links to the podcast can be found at guidedexpressions.com/podcast with an S, or in the description box of wherever you are listening to this. So today's topic is the fear bubble. Now, when COVID was happening last year, when it was really starting to ramp up, a lot of the sports teams were playing their games still, but they were playing it in what was called a bubble, meaning they were playing it in a contained space. There was not a lot of travel happening with the teams. They basically had all the teams in one city where they could, basically play all their games, and it was designed to kind of limit the amount of people that were going in and out of the bubble, as well as, limit the contact with players and people on the outside of the bubble to contain the virus, basically keep the virus out of the bubble was the idea. And for the most part, it was successful. But there's another type of bubble that a lot of people live in, and it's called a fear bubble, right? Now, what's a fear bubble? The fear bubble is basically something that we stay in when we don't want to do something because we're afraid that it's either going to work, it's not going to work, or it's not going to, help us in any way, or we fear that, we might get hurt, we might be vulnerable. The list goes on and on and on. But, anytime you fear something, right? Anytime you have any kind of fear whatsoever, you put yourself in a bubble. Now, the bubble keeps you safe, right? It keeps you safe. You can't lose in the bubble, but you also can't win either, right? So the fear bubble, a lot of people live in this fear bubble, and they live in this fear bubble, whether it's has something to do with, taking the next step in their career, taking the next step in their relationship, taking the next step as far as, any kind of growth, right? Maybe losing weight, whatever the case may be, that bubble keeps you from growing. It keeps you from getting the thing that you want. And now a lot of people might say, well, that bubble sometimes, it's a good thing. And I'm not saying that it's not always a good thing. Now, there's times when it is, right? Fear kept you from putting your hands on the stove, right? When you were smaller, fear kept you from doing, really crazy things that maybe you were inclined to do, right? That fear was, kind of like a protective mechanism to keep you from doing something really dangerous that could harm you or maim you or, or even kill you, right? But the problem is that fear is not 100% thing. Like, it's not something that you need to have 100% of the time. You don't need to live in a bubble 100% of the time, right? There are times when it's necessary to grow. There are times when it's necessary to evolve, but that fear comes up and stops you from taking that next step in your evolution, right? I know that when I was working for a university and I wasn't making enough money there to really support myself. I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to do. I didn't feel like I was growing in any kind of way. So what happened is that I basically overstayed my welcome, right? I basically overstayed my time there because I wasn't growing. And when I began to, really pay attention to my personal development, I started doing affirmations. I started doing, I started listening to different, audios and podcasts and things like that. And I was really beginning to grow mentally, right? And it got to a point where they let me go. And it was really no rhyme or no reason. Actually, when I got hired, one of the things that the manager said, he said, "You have a job for life here," right? Because we don't lay off people. We haven't laid off anybody in over 10 years. So, of course, I'd be the first one in 10 years to get laid off. Now, there are other people who were laid off that day, but my point is that I was afraid to step out. I was afraid to quit that job and go for another job because there's something about security, even when the place that we're trying to hold on to, or maybe the person that we're trying to hold on to, or the situation that we're trying to hold on to, isn't really serving us the way that we need to be served. Like, it's not really helping us in any way. The relationship's not helping. The job isn't helping. Not really. We're still at that same place that we were at, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, what have you, right? But sometimes fear causes us to hold on to a place that we really should be letting go. And so what happens is that it's either two things. Either we stay there and we don't grow and we deteriorate, right? Or we get pushed out, right? And so what happened with me, I got pushed out. And within about a month or two, I found a job where I was making a significantly higher amount of money, right? And doing, more of what I felt like I should be doing at that point in my career. And it's only been going up since then, right? I had to be pushed out of the bubble, right? So what you have to learn is that in time, you can't always rely on getting pushed out of the bubble. Sometimes you got to push yourself out of the bubble. If you know that you got to take the next step, sometimes you got to take that next step, not really knowing where that next step is going to land. But understanding that that fear bubble is keeping you locked into that place that you are in right now, even though you know that you're made for more, even though you know that you're supposed to be doing more than what you're doing right now. You know you were supposed to start that business by now. You know that you were supposed to start that nonprofit by now. You know that you were supposed to leave your hometown by now, right? You know that you're supposed to be in a further place than you are right now. But that bubble is keeping you there, right? Now, how does the bubble get built? It gets built by thoughts. And it gets built by our words, right? You keep saying, I'm not sure, right? Have you ever said that before? Of course you have. Everyone has. And you say, I'm not really sure if this is going to work or not, right? And I'm not saying that it can't work in spite of that. It can, right? But saying that I'm not sure, you say that a few hundred times, then all of a sudden you don't feel sure anymore. Right? Or, you might talk about the risk of it. You might say, well, I don't have any clients, or I don't have any customers, or I don't have any prospects. I don't have any people that want to give to what I'm doing. Right? So all you're doing is affirming that bubble, and you're making that bubble harder and harder to break out of. Right? What we think and what we say is 100% under our control. What we think and what we say is 100% under our control. So you've got to stop saying things like, I'm not sure and I don't know. It's already been established that you don't know. No one knows really where they're going to end up, right? They have an idea and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, there's a part of life that's unpredictable. Okay. But you can affirm that I'm going to be okay. Like, I'm going to be able to pay my bills, and I'm going to be able to, find somebody else, find someone who treats me well, treats me better than I'm being treated now. I know that I'll be able to find the necessary people and, and network with the necessary people to push my business forward or to push my nonprofit forward. You can say things like that are more positive than saying, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or it's not looking good, or, I hope it works, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Right. There's better things to say. Right. We already, like I said, we know that there's a part of life that's unpredictable, but you can still have confidence in the midst of unpredictability. You can be confident that things are going to work out for you. You can be confident that you're going to be okay. You can be confident that you're going to be able to keep the lights on. You can be confident that you'll be able to find someone. You can be confident that, that you're going to get through the surgery or whatever it is that you have to go through, right? All I'm saying in this podcast is stop staying, inside the fear bubble, because in that bubble, you can't break through. There's no breakthrough in the bubble. Okay. You've got to break out of the bubble and understand that, yes, outside the bubble might seem scary. It might seem unpredictable. It might seem like you're out there with no wire, with no rope. You're jumping out with no parachute. All of that seems scary. But when you start affirming better words, start saying better words, it will weaken the bubble. And then all of a sudden you'll step out, and 9 times out of 10, it's a lot scarier in our mind than it actually is in life. So if there's something that you want to do, start talking yourself into it. It's kind of like, when you go to the beach and the water's frigid, right? And, even though it's super hot, even though it's, almost 90 degrees, or maybe it's higher than 90 degrees, and getting in the water will provide relief. There's something about not getting in that water that feels safe, right? And you take that first step, you put your feet in the water and it's frigid. You feel like your foot's going to fall off, right? But it's still hot on the sand, okay? But you start moving into that water ever so slowly, and what happens? What invariably happens? The water becomes warmer. It gets warmer, right? And it gets more comfortable. And it's not as frigid as it was, say, 5 minutes ago. And I'm saying that life is a lot like that. It seems tough in our mind. It seems really impossible. And then we do it, and it's like, wow, it wasn't so bad. It's that fear, that bubble that's keeping us small and is keeping us from not experiencing the true potential that we all have within us. So I'm encouraging you to, start talking to yourself differently. Start saying more confident, powerful words. Start saying, yeah, I got this. I can do this. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to do this and I'm going to be okay. I'm going to leave this job and I'm going to be okay. I'm going to start this business and I'm going to be okay. My family's going to be okay. We're going to keep the lights on. We're going to keep, our car. We're going to keep our house. We're going to keep food in the fridge. We're going to be okay. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do everything I possibly can. Right. And we all know that we don't get everything right the first time. It just doesn't work like that. But the more that you improve, the more you focus on improvement, you'll get to where you need to get to. So hope that helped you. If you want to hear more, subscribe to the podcast. Go to my website, guidedexpressions.com, and check out my products. Check out my course, The Blueprint, which will drop in May 31st. And I just, I hope that I can help you in some way. Thank you so much for listening. This is Martin Williams, and until next time. Thanks for listening to Blueprint Radio. For more information on Martin Williams coaching and products, please go to guidedexpressions.com or visit me on Facebook as well as Instagram.